We're just leaving Shoal Lake. Shoal Lake. I do believe we're still in Manitoba. Russell and Birtle are on the menu. Just wanted to show you these crops. I'll show you some farmland. Show you what the prairies are up against. Binns Karth. I don't know what ethnicity that is. But a lot of these small towns that I drive through, they all seem to have some historical connection to the ethnic relations in Canada due to immigration. I was a hawk, I do believe. A hunting hawk. Pardon me. Did you see that lightning up ahead? On the left side of the road? I thought I saw a flash. That looks like wheat over there. Some kind of wheat. It's just past the ankle, I would imagine. It's grown just past the ankle. I do believe the date today is August 14. Is that? No. I don't even know what the date is. I used to own that pickup truck. Yeah. Not that specific one, but one very similar. Yeah, I'm a little behind. It's August 22nd. August 22nd, we're well into the autumn season. The summer is waning. In a couple of weeks it'll be September. Schools will be opening up. Some with a mask mandate, some not. We're already well into a fourth wave in Manitoba. Man, I need to get that GoPro. That way you can see what I can see in terms of some of the housing upgrades. So when you drive down the road, sometimes what you're going to see is an old house, probably built somewhere around 1920. So it's going to be 100 years old, maybe more, and it'll be abandoned because they built a new house just about 500 meters away from the old house. And sometimes if you're able, you can go in, like if you're friends with the farm, right? Friends with the farm family there. They'll let you go in and take a look around and explore what kind of books were they reading back in 1920. What were they doing? Sometimes they have stuff in there. It's pretty interesting. If you're into historical artifacts and etc. What were the farmers thinking? What were they doing? What was happening at the time? 1920, 1950, 1970. What was farm life like? The clues are all there inside of that farmhouse that's been abandoned. Now, it's not all rosy and pretty out here in terms of the stories that we tell ourselves about these farms, but it is what it is, whatever it is. And I just wanted to share this with you. I wanted you to see what does Canada look like. I wanted to tell you the story about Canada and how the farmers came. One of the things that Canada did for the Métis people, the Métis are one of the indigenous groups recognized by Canada, legally enshrined in the Canadian Constitution and defined as First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who are Aboriginal people. You can look at Section 35 of our Constitution. So for the First Nations people, the Cree, the Dene, the Lakota, the Nakota, the Dakota, excuse me. I was singing my heart out, so I got a little bit of a tickle in my throat now. So what they did for the First Nations people in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, is they put them on reserves and they struck treaty with them and they made all kinds of promises with them. And the deal was is if you go on a reserve, we'll do all of these things for you and we'll provide for you and we'll help you. None of which they did. They tried to eradicate them instead. But what they did was put them on reserves and make promises through all these treaties. And that was to make way for the farmer, so that the farmer could come and build a farm and farm the land and contribute to the Canadian economy. And originally they wanted English people to come. They didn't want Eastern Europeans. They didn't think that Eastern European people were really the right stock of people. It's kind of a racist thing to say, but that's their own words. They wanted to have an English empire that resembled the English Empire. That's what Canada was supposed to be. For the Métis, they promised them farmland, but then they quickly stole those farms away from Métis. And it took 100 years for the Métis people to be able to take that issue to court, in which Canada lost at the Supreme Court of Canada level. But the Métis didn't get everything they wanted, but they did get some things. And what the Supreme Court of Canada said was that Canada dishonored the Crown because they failed in administrating the Métis land settlement program. And what happened to the Métis was that their way of life was being threatened and they were inundated with immigration. Eastern Europeans were arriving, and in just about 10 years there was a population explosion from 10,000 mostly Métis people in the Red River area known as Winnipeg had exploded to over 100,000 people in just about 4 years. It went from 10,000 doubling to 20,000 in 1 year, exploding into 60,000 4 years later, and then there was 40,000 people here, or 100,000 people here in just 10 years. A massive explosion. They called it a Winnipeg. Winnipeg was a boom town back then. And so there were these prospectors, land prospectors, and what they did was they convinced the Métis people who were not farmers that they're going to fail anyway, so you may as well sell me your land scrip. Scrip was a piece of paper that said you owned this land. And they said, your land is going to be worthless. It's going to get taken anyways, so you may as well take the money now. And so a lot of Métis were swindled out of their land scrip. When I was driving through Quebec, you could see the same kind of farmland that was offered to Métis here in Red River. It was long strips of land that would have been given to the Métis heads of households. And the Métis were swindled out of that land, and then they were ethnically cleansed from the Red River area. They left in a great diaspora heading west and northwest. And that's how you got Métis settlements in Saskatchewan and Alberta. But they originated here in Red River. They didn't really originate in Ontario as much, but all that got stolen from the Métis. I can't really tell you what happened to the Inuit because they're more north. They're not Indian people. What the Europeans had labeled indigenous people, they called them Indians. That's not what we call ourselves. I don't believe we actually call ourselves Métis either. But it's the word that stuck. It's the word that everybody's, okay, that's what we're going to call ourselves now. But I think that word Métis is a religious imposition, a colonial imposition on those of us who are identified by the colonizers and the settlers. The settler colonizers. Well, I don't want to call people settlers. It seems to dehumanize and objectify them. But academically, they're identified as post-colonial settler colonizers. Settler colonizers. I think it's a derogatory term. I don't think it comes from a very nice place. I don't like to use it. But anyways, one thing I know about the Inuit is that whenever there were resources found on their traditional territory, they were picked up and relocated. So if they found gold or silver, excuse me, any sort of precious metal that was needed, they just relocated them. I think that they did that because they believed, oh, well, they're Indians. If they can survive over here, they can survive anywhere. They'll do their thing. Indians will do their thing. But they don't understand that the people have acclimatized themselves harmoniously in a certain land-based land area. And you can't just pick them up and send them somewhere else. You pretty much have to reacclimatize yourself to a new land base. You got to relearn about the animals in the area, their the herds, and how they migrate around. And if you're relying on the flora for medicines, etc., well, now you're out of your environment, and that has tragic consequences when you're just picked up and dropped off somewhere. And a lot of people died. But my main point is that farmers that came from Europe, as much as they don't like to talk about it or admit it, they get all grumpy when you point this out. This was not their land. They came and they took it because the Canadian government made it legal. But it was stolen land, even as it was stolen from the Métis through the Métis settlement scheme. You can read about that at the library if you want to go and find Chartrand's book. He's a lawyer. So yeah, the farmers have stolen the land and they're farming it. And as I was pointing out previously, technology and economy and etc. had developed all around agriculture. All of these towns that you see all across Canada would never have happened without the farmer, because the farmer has to harvest all this crop. Ranchers have to cull their herds, and in order to sell their product they have to have a central place to bring their product and put it out on the market. And so you have all of these farmer co-ops popping up, farmers working together. In as much as you can, if you're Ukrainian working with an Englishman, but the English ran the banks, the French ran some banks. Trust me, the English didn't want to share with the French, but in order to keep the peace, they gave them a little bit. They gave them more than everybody else. So the French enjoy far more economic prosperity and liberties at the expense of Germans and Ukrainians and Russians, Eastern Europeans, Italians and Greeks. East Indians. So, so they produced all of these banks. They produced these investing firms. They produced technology. There was demand for technology, automobiles, tractors, and engines. Fuel needed to fire up all of these vehicles so that they could harvest their crops, cull their herds more efficiently. Small towns began to develop all around these farms. There was a general store where that's where you would buy your ammunition and your medicines and your shampoo and your soap. They those farms and those towns, they would produce goods and services that originate directly from farmers. And these small towns, they had to trade with each other and share products with each other, spurring on competition for technology, banking, finance, etc. And you'd have to have central hubs to do all of this trading. You'd have to have a network of truck drivers who would deliver these goods in big trailers like I'm doing right now. You'd have to have a railroad system that could transport all of this stuff. You'd have to have ports. And that's how Toronto and Montreal and Quebec City were all developed. Brampton, Ontario, all those major cities, they blossomed because of the farmer. And Vancouver, doesn't even compare with anything you might see from Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and Quebec. Doesn't even compare. Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec. The highways, the freeways, the wealth. It's magnificent down there. It's magnificent in Vancouver and in Edmonton and Calgary as well. There's plenty of opportunity in Alberta still, even though their oil is, I guess, we don't want it anymore because it's causing too much problems for our climate. Alberta wants it, but that's the farmland. That's the story about the farmland in Canada. That's the story of towns and villages and hamlets all developing into big cities right across Canada. Less up north, but it's from Vancouver all the way to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. The reality is that Canada is um, developed by dishonoring the crown. Who who gives a shit about the crown? We're going to steal this land. We're going to betray the crown and then get away with this. And we're going to produce wealth through Canada. And then we tell ourselves all kinds of bullshit stories in our public education systems about no farms, no food.